Paul Hudrick, our 97.3 ESPN.com Sixers insider. Catch all of his coverage over at 97.3 ESPN.com and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. Paul, how you doing on this day after?
I'm doing great, Josh. How are you?
Doing pretty good, but I'm confused because I asked at the beginning of the show, and I'll ask you here, how do we differentiate between the team coming off to such a rough start to the game and the first three quarters put them in the position for them to have to come back and win that game? So how do we differentiate the value of, hey, they came back and won the game versus, but they put themselves in that position in the first place?
Well, I think the first half, and Doc Rivers said this after the game too, was a matter of just a lot of missed shots. I thought, and let's not, we got to give Toronto a little credit, right? I mean, this is a team that won a championship a couple years ago. Granted, they're not as talented as they were even last year, but you still have Kyle Lowry, you still have Fred VanVleet, you still have Pascal Siakam, and they were hungry. Like they came into Philly, they came in 0-2, and they came in hungry and wanting to win a basketball game. So I think they played very good defense. They have a very good coach and a very good scheme. So I think that plays into it. And then I think the Sixers moved the ball pretty well in the first half, and they just couldn't make anything. Ben Simmons couldn't make anything at the rim. Danny Green still, you could see he's still not quite there yet. And just guys just missing really good looks in the first half. So I think that's a huge part of why you saw an uneven team. And then also Toronto shot the lights out from three in the first half. Then the Sixers. And one thing I think we're all going to have to get used to is defensive philosophy. The big drastic change, which is Brett Brown wanted to eliminate 3-pointers. He didn't want teams to shoot a lot of threes, and that's what his defense was, and it worked. The Sixers were always especially last year, among one of the best teams in the NBA at eliminating 3-pointers. Doc Rivers doesn't want to play like that. Doc Rivers wants to protect the rim and kind of play inside out defensively. So you're going to be vulnerable when a team gets hot, and I think that's what you saw through the first couple quarters. But then Toronto cooled off. The Sixers defense, ramped up when it needed to. Toronto scored 37 points in the second half. So I think the way you kind of reconcile it is this is a team that's still working out kinks offensively, but the fact that they were able to be that dominant defensively in the second half, I think that's the encouraging thing.
Yeah, I'm kind of having trouble dissecting what this team is, and I'm fully aware it's 4 games, and I like to assess it fully for the first time after 20 games because you have a big enough sample size. But you talk about the missed shots, and Doc has said that a few times now where he's happy with the looks, but they're just knocking them down. And I just asked the question, is the missed shots just a product of what Danny Green is at this point? Is this a product of Seth Curry playing 33 minutes where throughout his career he's more of a mid-20 kind of guy? And I know they're not going to shoot 25.8% from three long term, but I just asked the question, is this who the Danny Green and Seth Curry combination really is?
Well, Seth Curry, I made the joke even last night after he had that 1-3 that was ugly and he bricked it. And even I said, even if Seth Curry gets here and he forgets how to shoot like everyone else that joins the Sixers. But the guy is shooting over 40% from three to start the season. So I don't want to, gloss over that with Seth Curry. It's a little bit below his career rate because his career rate is literally the best active one of all time, current active players. But he's still over 40%, so I can't make too much a big of a deal of that. I'm starting to wonder if maybe Seth Curry is a second-half player because it seems like in the second half of games he's been much better so far this season. Danny Green, listen, he didn't shoot the ball well in the bubble. He shot the ball decently before that with the Lakers. The year before that in Toronto, he was well over 40%. So for me, I'm not going to go out on a limb and say I think this is who Danny Green is. I would say, if anything, I think he maybe gets back closer to the mean. I think maybe he doesn't hit 43% like he did, or I think it might have even been like 45% when he was with Toronto. Maybe he's not that, but I think he's at least, above league average, like 37, 38, 39%. I think he's got to be in there, 40% for his career. So I think he's got to be in that mix somewhere. So I think it is a matter of, I don't think his legs are fully back yet from the championship. I think he had a really weird offseason where he got traded twice and couldn't join the Sixers until they had already started training camp. So I think that, Danny Green isn't getting any younger. He is an older guy. He's got a lot of mileage on his legs because he has gone on deep playoff runs. But to say that the player that he is right now is the guy he's going to beat throughout the season, I don't think is fair because I think he's going to get better as the year goes on.
Now, with all that being said, do you foresee the potential of maybe Doc at some point shaking up this starting lineup?
I could see it, and I did write that after the Cleveland game. One of the things I wrote for 97.3 ESPN.com during my takeaways was that I wondered if perhaps the Tobias Harris Danny Green combination wasn't good. But I did say that before Tobias Harris had a hell of a night against Toronto, where he looked like the guy that maybe the Sixers could use going forward. But I do wonder at some point if he does make a change. Now, the only issue with that is, the obvious assumption would be if he does that, Shake Milton hops in the starting lineup, Danny Green comes off the bench. Now the issue is when you get to the bench, who's the playmaker off the bench? Because if Shake's in the starting lineup, you have your options are like Danny Green, Furkan Korkmaz, Matisse Thybulle. Like, you don't have as many perimeter creation type players. Maxi's obviously in that mix, and I think he'll get his looks, but he's still a 20-year-old rookie. So I think the issue is if you do put Shake Milton in the starting lineup, put Danny Green on the bench, then you're weakening your bench. I've been pretty steadfast in saying I still think this team needs, and I've said this before the season, so this isn't just a reaction to 4 games. I think 4 games is just reinforcing for me that this team needs another shot creator, another playmaker, whether it's a guy that you can plug into the starting lineup for Danny Green or that you can bring off the bench and then put Shake Milton in the starting lineup. So to answer your question, I would say I don't think Doc Rivers is married to the starting lineup. I could see a change happening, but I think he is going to give it a lot of time. I think, Hunter, the 20-game mark you put on it is about right. I think that would be the time where maybe he would start contemplating something like that.
Let's get to Ben Simmons. So his stat line after the game, 11, 13, and 7. He definitely brings it defensively. We know what he does from there. Facilitating, it's great. But to me, and I'm a Ben Simmons guy. I've always supported. I want him here. I want Ben Simmons to be here. I want to grow with him. But last night, it's just unacceptable to me offensively. I don't see anything changing. Now, he had that fake 3. It wasn't really a fake 3 in the corner, though, early in the first quarter, and then you see screenshots of guys just sagging off him insanely when he's out by the perimeter. It's just a huge issue, and I don't see this team changing until that changes, and it's just so frustrating. So what did you see out of Ben last night?
I understand the frustration. I do. I totally get it, and I would say a couple things. One, I think we need to let Doc Rivers have a little time with him to kind of work his magic and see if he can get the most out of him and to see what he can do. It is 4 games. I get that the issues that we saw before are still the issues. So I 100% understand the fan frustration. Sometimes it's frustrating for me to watch. I get it. But I would give Doc a little more time, see if maybe he can get through to him a little bit more. What I liked about Ben Simmons is I like that this is a Toronto team that has given him fits over the years, even without Kawhi Leonard. Again, they are schemed. Nick Nurse does a really good job as a defensive coach, and they've really bottled up. They've bottled up Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons over the years. So for me to see Ben Simmons be aggressive going downhill and getting to the basket, I liked. What I didn't like, and something that what I've been saying, I know a lot of people focus on the outside shot and all that, but the one thing I've really wanted him to get better at is finishing around the rim. And that, to me, last night, that's what I saw. That's the deficiency I saw, is he was getting to the rim because he's so big and he's so fast and he's so gifted. But when he got to the rim, he couldn't finish. And that's the thing I would like to see him improve on. I would like to see him become a better finisher. Now, the first step is him actually being aggressive and him actually getting to the rim. So that's encouraging. But, yeah, I am a little disappointed that it's just his offensive game still hasn't quite grown. I get it. But I'm more encouraged than I'm discouraged with him, and I want to give Doc Rivers a little time to see if he can get more out of him, to see if he can make it work. And I also thought, like, when you look at the blueprint of what this team is supposed to be, it's supposed to be Joel Embiid dominating in the post and scoring, and your complementary scoring is supposed to be coming out of Tobias Harris, which you did see last night. So when that's all clicking, you're not asking Ben Simmons to score as much, and that's how you get – I think that's the blueprint going forward for me.
Yeah, and I think for Ben Simmons, at least for me, Paul, it's less about the scoring specifically than it is about the strange mistakes he makes. Like the one pass he meant to throw to Tobias Harris, and it was just such an ill-advised pass, or the 6 turnovers versus the Cavs I mentioned to you about yesterday. I'm just starting to wonder more and more that, to me, I think Ben Simmons can – I'm not saying he is this player, but I think that he's closer to, let's say, Giannis in terms of what he can do on the court than, let's say, LeBron. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think Giannis has always been, again, we're not, you and I are not directly comparing him to Giannis. Giannis is an MVP of this league, but the way that they play, for sure, they're big, they're skilled, and they don't shoot. I mean, they're very similar players in that regard, whereas I would say Ben is a much better passer than Giannis. Giannis is clearly a much better scorer and finisher than Ben. And I think that's where, when we kind of get back to the whole shooting thing with Ben, when you look at Giannis, and I know a lot of people will say, oh, well, look, he shoots now. Well, he shoots 30% from three. And when you look at the way defenses play him, they don't play him any differently. They don't play tight on him. They play off him. They dare him to shoot. And that's how he's had to learn how to attack that and how to eat that space and how to attack at the rim. Ben Simmons hasn't done that yet, and I think that's where the evolution needs to happen with Ben Simmons, because it's not Giannis hasn't gotten better because he's learned how to shoot. That's not really the case. Giannis has gotten better because he's learned how to attack defenses when they give him that space, and Ben Simmons hasn't done it yet. You see glimpses of it. Last year he had that stretch. Unfortunately, it was when Joel Embiid was out, but he had like a 20-game stretch where he was averaging like 20 points and nearly a triple-double. That guy is like in there somewhere. Doc Rivers needs to find a way to get him out and to find that balance. And Doc has talked about that a ton, of him finding that balance between attacking and scoring and facilitating. And I think that it's a combination of the system, the new players, and then him still figuring himself out. And it's been up and down. It's been rocky. And I think it's going to continue to be that way for at least the first quarter of the season.
It's ironic you mentioned Giannis in the shooting because his team had 29 threes last night, and he contributed to 0 of those made threes, but yet his team still won by all those points, Broads.
Yeah, that's pretty incredible. Paul, so when you look at this game, obviously Joel Embiid was huge late, and so was Tobias Harris, but for Embiid, what excited you the most about his play? Was it coming back from the hamstring? We've never seen him come back from an injury mid-game and actually go out there and perform. Was it the free throw line, or was it the pass to Seth Curry when 3 guys were on him?
I think it's one thing you already touched on and another thing you didn't. I would say the pass to Seth, and just in general, I thought, again, his understanding of the game. And when I was on yesterday with you, Josh, I pointed out that Nick Nurse has always schemed really well, even without Marc Gasol. Nick Nurse has always schemed really well against Joel Embiid. He sent double teams from all different places in all different ways, and he's done a really nice job on them. Last night, I thought this was one of the better jobs Joel Embiid has done in recognizing double teams early and either making quick moves or making quick passes. He did have a couple bad turnovers. One was on the play when he did get hurt, but I am – even through these first 3 games with Joel Embiid in the lineup, I am really encouraged by his decision making and him, handling double teams and the way he's done that. I think he's been excellent in that regard. The other thing, and it's something I asked Doc Rivers about last night, is running down the floor. And I know it's such a simple thing, but when he runs down the floor and he gets that early post position, you saw at least 3 or 4 plays where that happened, and they got him the ball. And the first play, it was one of the first plays of the game where he came up short on a hook shot. He joked that, Doc Rivers joked that he thinks he was so far underneath the rim that he was short on it because he wasn't expecting, he never gets positioned like that because he's not in a position to do that. So, I am really encouraged by his physical fitness level, and then also just his willingness at being able to run down the floor. And as Doc pointed out, he can't do it every position. Listen, this guy is enormous. He's 7 feet tall. He's 280 pounds. You can't expect a guy like that to run up and down the floor every single possession, every single night. It's just not realistic. But if he can do it a few times a game and get that early position, it gets him easy baskets. It helps the offense. It helps them get sooner, better looks inside earlier parts of the shot clock. So I think those are the 2 elements I think I'm most excited about. His playing with his decision making within double teams, and then his fitness level and his ability to get position early in the shot clock. Those things have really stood out through 3 games.
Sixers back in action tomorrow night versus the Orlando Magic. You hear all the action right here on 97.3 ESPN, part of our New Year's Eve triple header of sports action tomorrow on 97.3 ESPN. We've been talking with Paul Hudrick, our 97.3 ESPN.com Sixers insider. Follow him on Twitter at Paul Hudrick. Check out his work at 973ESPN.com, and also check out his podcast, Coming In for a Landing. There's all guests. He appeared on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. Paul, great stuff today.
Thanks, Josh.